Chief Medical Officer Vroon had witnessed many strange things during his 16 solar cycles with the Galactic Medical Corps. He'd treated Zorganian spine worms, extracted parasitic lung crystals from Plutonian miners, and once had to explain to a Venusian diplomat why swallowing their own eyeballs during diplomatic functions was considered medically inadvisable. But nothing in his extensive training had prepared him for humans. Fascinating, Vroon muttered, his 6 translucent fingers hovering over Captain Rodriguez's exposed forearm. You say this pink layer regenerates itself? Without medical intervention? It's called skin, Doc. Nothing special about it. Rodriguez sat patiently on the examination table, enduring the mandatory physical all human soldiers had to undergo before joining the Galactic Alliance's peacekeeping force. Vroon's bulbous eyes widened, the glowing purple irises dilating with scientific curiosity. And these markings? Some form of tribal identification? His finger traced one of the tattoos on Rodriguez's bicep. My daughter's name and birthday, Rodriguez replied flatly. Can we speed this up? I've got troops to brief. Medical Officer Lixel, Vroon's assistant, was busy scanning Rodriguez with a handheld device, her antennae twitching with excitement. Captain, your internal scan shows multiple healed fractures and evidence of past trauma. How are you still functional? Rodriguez shrugged. Broke my leg playing football in college. Collarbone during basic training. Couple ribs during the Mars Rebellion. No big deal. No big deal, Vroon repeated incredulously, making notes on his holographic clipboard. Your species treats potentially fatal damage as no big deal. Most fascinating. Lieutenant Patel poked her head through the medical bay door. Captain, sorry to interrupt your alien prodding session, but the Commodore wants a word about tomorrow's joint operation. Thank God, Rodriguez muttered, hopping off the table. We done here, Doc? Vroon reluctantly nodded. Yes, but I would like to schedule further examinations. Your biology is perplexing. You appear simultaneously fragile yet remarkably durable. Story of humanity, Doc, Rodriguez grinned, pulling his uniform jacket back on. We're walking contradictions. After Rodriguez left, Vroon turned to Lixel, his voice hushed with scientific reverence. Did you see the scars? Their medical technology must be primitive, yet they survive conditions that would terminate most sentient species. Perhaps we should observe them in action before making definitive conclusions, Lixel suggested, her voice the calm, the methodical tone of a scientist confronted with an exciting new specimen. Yes, Vroon agreed, his eyes glowing brighter with anticipation. Tomorrow's operation against those space pirates will provide ample opportunity to study humans under stress conditions. He paused, adding with professional detachment, for purely medical purposes, of course. Of course, Lixel agreed, though her twitching antennae betrayed her excitement. Neither of them could have possibly anticipated what humans under stress truly meant. The Galactic Alliance battlecruiser Benevolent Intervention hung in orbit around the asteroid colony of Series 9, a notorious haven for space pirates who had been raiding supply ships in the sector. The mission was simple. A joint human-alien task force would infiltrate the pirates' base, neutralize their leadership, and secure their stolen munitions cache. Simple on paper, anyway. Vroon and Lixel had convinced Commander Drelk, a gelatinous life form from Proxima Centauri with a distinguished military career, to allow them to accompany the mission as medical observers. They were now stationed in the Tactical Command Center, watching preparations through holographic displays. The humans are quite enthusiastic, Commander Drelk burbled, his translucent body rippling with concern as they watched Rodriguez brief his troops. The human soldiers were checking weapons, adjusting armor and punching each other's shoulders in what appeared to be some primitive bonding ritual. Their endocrine systems are producing elevated levels of adrenaline and cortisol, Lixil observed, studying her scanner. Yet they appear to be enjoying this pre-combat state. Enjoying? Vroon's eye stalks extended in surprise. Most sentient beings experience fear and dread before potential harm. On the display, Rodriguez was outlining the mission parameters with remarkable casualness. We go in hot, secure the hub sectors, then push to the command center. Standard sweep and clear. Any questions? A burly human with Kowalski emblazoned on his armor raised his hand. Rules of engagement, Captain? Try not to kill anyone who surrenders, Rodriguez replied with a shrug. But they're pirates, so don't lose sleep over it. Vroon's color shifted to a pale blue of concern. They discuss potential death so, casually. Commander Drelk rippled in agreement. Humans have always been the most aggressive species in the Alliance. That's why we value them for security operations. The mission launched 30 minutes later. Vroon and Lixil monitored from the command ship as the tactical teams deployed to the asteroid's surface and began infiltrating the pirates' complex. The human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, seamlessly integrating with the Arcturian stealth specialists and Denebian heavy weapons experts. They're remarkably adaptable, Lixil noted, watching as Rodriguez's hand signaled commands to an 8-limbed Arcturian scout who nodded in comprehension. Most species take years to develop effective cross-species communication protocols. The first shots were fired 17 minutes into the operation. A group of pirates had spotted an advanced team and opened fire with plasma rifles. The command center erupted with activity as status reports flooded in. Alpha team taking fire. 3 hostiles southeast corridor. Bravo moving to flank position. Charlie team, hold position. We've got movement ahead. Vroon watched in horrified fascination as the human soldiers reacted to the danger by charging toward it. While the Arcturians took cover and the Denebians set up defensive positions, the humans advanced, laying down suppressive fire and maneuvering through the corridors with reckless speed. They're moving toward the danger, Vroon whispered incredulously. Is this a cultural death wish? Some form of religious sacrifice? I believe they call it taking the initiative, Commander Drelk replied dryly. On the main display, they watched as Rodriguez's team breached a security door. A pirate leapt out, firing wildly. An energy bolt grazed Private Martinez's shoulder, burning through his armor. The human barely flinched, spinning around to neutralize the attacker with a well-placed shot. He's injured, Lixil exclaimed, her antennae standing straight up in alarm. But Martinez merely slapped a patch on his shoulder and continued advancing with his team. Shouldn't he seek medical attention? Vroon asked, baffled. The mission comes first, Doctor, Commander Drelk explained. Humans prioritize objective completion over personal safety. It's what makes them effective. The battle intensified as the teams pushed deeper into the complex. Pirates had set up barricades and automated defense systems, but the human-led teams methodically dismantled their resistance, corridor by corridor. Then the situation escalated dramatically. A massive explosion rocked the eastern section of the complex. Direct hit on East Corridor 7, came a panicked report. Multiple casualties, human and Arcturian. Vroon and Lixil exchanged alarmed glances. This was about to become much more than an observational mission. The medical bay aboard the Benevolent Intervention was designed to handle battlefield trauma for 24 different species. It featured the latest in regenerative technology, neural stabilizers, and automated surgical systems. Vroon had always taken pride in the facility's capabilities. Now it looked like a scene from a nightmare. Incoming wounded. Stand by for triage. Vroon called out as the first teleportation beams deposited injured soldiers on the waiting gurneys. 3 Arcturians with minor burns, a Denebian with a crushed limb, and 4 humans in varying states of injury materialized in rapid succession. The most severely wounded human was Sergeant Kowalski, with a gaping plasma burn across his thigh that had seared through armor and flesh. Prioritized by species-specific trauma protocols. Vroon ordered his medical team. Arcturians to Regeneration Chamber 3, Denibian to Suspension Tank B, Humans 2. He stopped mid-sentence, staring in disbelief at what was happening on the far gurney. Kowalski had pushed away the medical drone and was rummaging through a personal kit strapped to his armor. "Sergeant, you require immediate medical attention." Vroon rushed over, waving his diagnostic scanner frantically. "Just need to patch this up and get back out there, Doc," Kowalski grunted, pulling out what looked like a primitive first aid kit. To Vroon's horror, the human extracted a small device that, when activated, produced a glowing hot filament. "What are you?" Before Vroon could finish, Kowalski pressed the heated filament directly against his wound. The smell of burning human flesh filled the medical bay. Kowalski's face contorted in pain, but he didn't scream, just let out a string of colorful expletives that the universal translator struggled to properly interpret. "By the 7 moons of Zalthor," Vroon shrieked, his color cycling rapidly through distressed purples and shocked greens. "You're causing further damage." "I'm cauterizing it," Kowalski explained through gritted teeth, his face pale and sweaty. "Stops the bleeding. Old field medic trick." Across the room, Private Jenkins, who had a piece of shrapnel lodged in his shoulder, was watching with mild interest while applying some kind of adhesive gel to a cut on his arm. "Don't get your tentacles in a twist, Doc," Jenkins called out. "We know what we're doing." Lixel hovered near Jenkins, scanner in hand, her antennae quivering with scientific horror. "This primitive approach will lead to scarring, potential infection, and unnecessary pain." "Yeah, well, we've got pirates to kill and no time for your fancy healing pods," Jenkins replied, then winced as he yanked the shrapnel from his own shoulder. Blood spurted briefly before he slapped another gel patch over the wound. Rodriguez entered the medical bay, supporting Lieutenant Patel, who had a nasty head wound that was bleeding profusely. "Status report," the captain demanded, helping Patel onto an empty gurney. "Sir, just need some biofoam and I'm good to go," Kowalski reported, already attempting to stand despite his freshly cauterized leg wound. "Captain," Vroon intercepted Rodriguez, his voice pitched high with medical indignation. "Your soldiers are refusing proper treatment and engaging in barbaric self-administered procedures." Rodriguez glanced around the medical bay, taking in the scene of humans patching themselves up while the alien medical staff fluttered about in distress. "Looks like standard field medicine to me, Doc," he shrugged. "We don't have time for full treatments. The pirates are regrouping at the command center, and we need to move before they barricade themselves in." But Vroon's eye stalks drooped in defeat. "At minimum, allow us to administer pain management. Your soldiers are experiencing extreme discomfort." Rodriguez seemed to consider this. "Fine. Quick pain blockers only, nothing that'll dull reflexes or reaction time." As Vroon hurried to comply, he overheard Jenkins talking to an Arcturian soldier whose antenna had been singed in the explosion. "First firefight?" Jenkins asked, applying a fresh bandage to his shoulder. The Arcturian nodded nervously. "How do you endure such damage without retreating?" Jenkins laughed. This is nothing. During the Luna campaign, I took shrapnel in both legs and still completed the mission. Humans are built to take punishment and keep going. It's kind of our whole deal." Vroon administered a localized pain blocker to Kowalski's leg while simultaneously running a covert deep scan of the human's physiology. What he discovered both fascinated and terrified him. The wound was already showing signs of initial healing response, far faster than most species. The human body had immediately begun emergency protocols to prevent further damage. "Remarkable," Vroon muttered. "Your pain threshold and biological resilience are unlike anything in our medical databases." "Tell me something I don't know, Doc." Kowalski grinned, testing his weight on the injured leg. "Now, how about clearing me to get back out there? I've got a score to settle with those pirates." "Absolutely not." Vroon's voice reached a pitch previously thought impossible for his species. His color had shifted to a bright orange of medical authority as he positioned himself between the human soldiers and the medical bay exit. "None of you are returning to combat." The 4 injured humans exchanged glances that conveyed a mixture of amusement and annoyance. "Doc," Rodriguez began with forced patience, "we appreciate your concern, but we've got a mission to complete. You have lacerations, burns, potential internal injuries." Vroon's eye stalks were fully extended in righteous medical indignation. Sergeant Kowalski literally burned his own flesh closed. This violates at least 16 galactic medical protocols. Lixel approached with a data pad displaying the relevant regulations. Section 47.3 clearly states that all personnel must receive complete treatment before returning to active duty. She added helpfully. Jenkins snorted. Those rules were written by species that regenerate limbs or have backup nervous systems. Humans work differently. "That's precisely my point," Vroon insisted. "Your physiology is uniquely vulnerable. You lack redundant organs, regenerative abilities, or protective exoskeletons." "But we've got something better," Patel said, pressing a bandage against her head wound. "We're stubborn as hell." Commander Drelk oozed into the medical bay, his gelatinous form pulsing with concern. "Dr. Vroon, what's the situation?" "The mission is at a critical juncture." Vroon turned to his commanding officer with relief. "Commander, I must insist these humans remain under medical observation. Their injuries require—" "With all due respect, Commander," Rodriguez interrupted, "my team is combat ready. The pirates are consolidating at their command center. If we don't move now, they'll entrench themselves and this whole operation fails." Drelk rippled thoughtfully. "Dr. Vroon, is there any immediate risk to their lives if they return to duty?" Vroon's color darkened with frustration. "That's not the point. They're injured. They're in pain. Medical protocols clearly." "Pain is just weakness leaving the body," Kowalski interrupted with a grin that revealed bloodied teeth. Lixel's antennae twitched in confusion. "That statement is physiologically inaccurate. Pain is a neurological response indicating tissue damage." "It's a saying," Patel explained. "Means we don't let discomfort stop us from doing what needs to be done." Vroon was becoming increasingly agitated. "But your primitive self-treatments will lead to complications. Scarring. Potential infection." "Scars tell stories, Doc," Jenkins shrugged, then winced as the motion pulled at his freshly bandaged shoulder. "Chicks dig em." "I don't understand what subterranean excavation females have to do with Lixel," began before Rodriguez cut her off. "Look, in human culture, completing the mission takes priority over personal comfort," the captain explained. "It's how we're trained. It's how we're built." Commander Drelk pulsed in what appeared to be resignation. "Dr. Vroon, I sympathize with your medical concerns, but I cannot force them to remain if they're willing to continue. The Alliance Protocol grants species autonomy over their own medical decisions in joint operations." But Vroon sputtered. "Think of it this way," Rodriguez offered. "Would you stop a Thracian from entering its hibernation cocoon during mating season just because it seems weird to you? That's a natural biological process, not self-mutilation." Vroon countered. "To us, pushing through pain is natural," Patel said simply. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're designed to keep going when any sensible species would stop. Vroon's color faded to a pale lilac of defeat. This is madness. You're risking further injury, infection, permanent disability. Welcome to humanity, Doc. Kowalski laughed, testing his weight on his injured leg again. We're basically specialized monkeys with anxiety and something to prove. Commander Drelk intervened before the argument could escalate further. Perhaps a compromise. Dr. Vroon and Medical Officer Lixel will accompany the human team as field medics. They can monitor the injuries and intervene if absolutely necessary. Vroon's eye stalks shot up in alarm. Enter combat? Us? But we're medical personnel, not soldiers. Consider it a research opportunity, Drelk suggested. You wanted to study human resilience in action. Now's your chance. Rodriguez considered this, then nodded. Works for me. Just stay behind us and try not to get shot. This is highly irregular, Vroon protested. So is cauterizing your own leg and asking to go back into battle, Lixel pointed out. Yet here we are. 5 minutes later, Vroon found himself wearing lightweight combat armor that did nothing to calm his anxieties as they prepared to teleport back to the asteroid base. The armor, designed for his four-limbed physiology, felt constricting and awkward. Remember, stay behind us and keep low, Rodriguez instructed as they gathered on the teleportation pad. Lixel, you're with Jenkins and Patel. Vroon, you're with me and Kowalski. I still protest this course of action, Vroon muttered, clutching his medical kit like a shield. This violates at least 27 safety protocols. Noted, Rodriguez replied dryly, ready for transport on my mark. 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved in shimmering light, then reconstituted into the smoky, half-lit corridor of the asteroid base. The air smelled of ozone and burning synthetics. Distant weapons fire echoed through the metal passageways. Status report, Rodriguez barked into his comm unit. Charlie team holding position at Junction 12, came the response. Pirates have fortified the command center with automated defenses. We're pinned down. Copy that. We're moving to flank position through Maintenance Tunnel B. Rodriguez signaled for the team to move out. Vroon watched in horrified fascination as the injured humans moved with practiced efficiency, checking corners and covering each other despite their wounds. Kowalski limped slightly but otherwise showed no sign of his serious injury. Patel had blood seeping through her head bandage but maintained perfect aim with her weapon. Your species' capacity for ignoring physical limitations is unsettling, Vroon whispered to Rodriguez as they moved through a narrow service corridor. It's called compartmentalization, Doc, Rodriguez replied without taking his eyes off their path. Let's deal with the pain later. Complete the mission now. They emerged into a wider corridor where they joined up with another team of Alliance soldiers, a mix of Arcturians and Denebians who looked considerably more worse for wear than the injured humans. Captain, an Arcturian lieutenant greeted them. We've identified a weakness in their defenses, but it requires crossing an exposed area under heavy fire. Rodriguez nodded. Show me. The lieutenant brought up a holographic display showing the layout ahead. This service junction leads directly to their command center, but it's covered by automated sentry guns. Anyone crossing gets shredded. Rodriguez studied the display thoughtfully. We need a distraction. I could recalibrate our medical scanner to emit an electromagnetic pulse, Lixel suggested unexpectedly. It might temporarily disable their targeting systems. Everyone stared at the normally reserved medical officer. What? Lixel's antennae twitched defensively. I read technical journals. Good thinking, Rodriguez nodded approvingly. How long would it give us? 20 seconds at most. The sentries will have backup systems. That's all we need. Kowalski, Jenkins, you're with me. We'll rush the command center once the sentries are down. Everyone else provides covering fire. Vroon watched in disbelief as the three most severely injured humans prepared to undertake the most dangerous part of the mission. Captain, surely the uninjured personnel should. We're the fastest, Kowalski interrupted, checking his weapon. And we've got the most to prove. Before Vroon could protest further, they were moving into position. Lixel worked rapidly to modify her scanner, while the rest of the team spread out with weapons ready. EMP ready in 3, 2, 1. Lixel activated the device. A pulse of invisible energy surged forward. The automated sentries ahead flickered momentarily, and in that instant, Rodriguez, Kowalski, and Jenkins sprinted forward across the exposed junction. Vroon couldn't help himself. Despite his terror, he peeked around the corner to watch. The humans moved with shocking speed despite their injuries. Halfway across, the sentries began to reactivate. A burst of weapons fire struck the floor near Jenkins, who dove and rolled without breaking stride. Kowalski's injured leg gave out momentarily, but he pushed himself up and continued running, face contorted with pain but determination unwavering. They reached the other side just as the sentries returned to full power. The covering fire from the Alliance team forced the pirates to keep their heads down as the three humans breached the command center door. What followed was a blur of shouted commands, weapons fire, and the sounds of close-quarters combat. Then suddenly silence. Command center secure. Rodriguez's voice came over the comm. Repeat. Command center secure. All pirate leadership neutralized or surrendered. Mission accomplished. A cheer went up from the Alliance soldiers. Even Vroon found himself making his species' gesture of relief a rapid color shift from anxious yellow to calming blue. I don't understand, he said to Lixel as they made their way to the now secured command center. By all medical logic, they should have been incapacitated by their injuries. Lixel's antennae waved thoughtfully. Perhaps we've been approaching human physiology from the wrong perspective. Their advantage isn't physical, it's psychological. Inside the command center, they found Rodriguez accepting the surrender of the pirate captain, while Jenkins secured prisoners and Kowalski, finally showing signs of exhaustion, had propped himself against a console, applying pressure to his reopened leg wound. Medical assistance required here, Vroon announced, rushing to Kowalski's side with scanner ready. Took you long enough, Doc. Kowalski grinned weakly. Figured I'd finally let you do your job now that the hard part's done. The victory celebration aboard the benevolent intervention was subdued by Alliance standards but raucous by human ones. The mess hall had been converted into an improper gathering space where soldiers from all species mingled, sharing tales of the battle and comparing injuries like badges of honor. Vroon sat at a corner table with Lixel, nursing a container of nutrient solution while observing the humans with newfound fascination. All 4 injured soldiers had finally submitted to proper medical treatment, though only after completing mission debriefing and ensuring the security of their objectives. I've updated our medical database with 16 new entries on human resilience factors, Lixel reported, reviewing her data pad. Their pain management techniques alone merit a dedicated research paper. Their approach defies conventional medical wisdom, Vroon agreed, his color a contemplative purple. They use pain as motivation rather than warning, injury as challenge rather than limitation. Across the room, Kowalski was entertaining a group of Arcturians with an embellished tale of how he cauterized his own leg wound, complete with dramatic reenactment. The Arcturians looked simultaneously horrified and impressed. Perhaps there's something we can learn from their methods, Lixel suggested hesitantly. Not the crude self-surgery, of course, but their mental approach to trauma. Commander Drelk oozed over to their table, his gelatinous form rippling with what appeared to be amusement. "Doctors, I've reviewed your field performance today. Impressive adaptation to combat conditions." "Thank you, Commander," Vroon replied, slightly embarrassed, "though I hope not to repeat the experience anytime soon." "I've received word from Alliance Command," Drell continued. "The humans have specifically requested that you both be assigned as permanent medical liaisons to their detachment." "What?" Vroon's eye stalks shot up in alarm. "They were impressed by your willingness to enter combat conditions to monitor their health," Drelk explained. Captain Rodriguez called it actual battlefield medicine rather than theoretical nonsense. "I'm not sure whether to be flattered or terrified," Vroon muttered. Rodriguez approached their table, moving carefully to avoid aggravating his newly healed injuries. "Mind if I join you, docs?" "Please," Lixel gestured to an empty seat. The captain sat down with a barely suppressed wince. "So I hear you'll be joining us for future operations." "It seems we have little choice," Vroon replied dryly. Rodriguez laughed. "Look at it this way, you'll have unprecedented research opportunities. The Alliance has been fighting alongside humans for decades, but no one's properly studied how we actually function in combat. Because most medical professionals are sane enough to stay away from active firefights," Vroon pointed out. "And yet you came anyway," Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "That's the kind of guts we respect." Across the room, Jenkins had convinced a reluctant Denebian medic to examine his shoulder scar, proudly displaying it like a trophy. "I still don't understand your species' fascination with physical damage markers," Lixel commented. "Scars tell stories," Rodriguez explained. "They're proof that you faced something that should have stopped you and it didn't." Vroon contemplated this, a physical reminder of resilience. "Exactly," Rodriguez nodded. "Humans are fragile in a lot of ways. We don't have backup organs or regenerative abilities or armored skin. What we do have is adaptability and pure stubbornness." Fascinating, Lixel's antennae twitched with scientific interest. "Your psychological factors compensate for physiological limitations." "If you're calling us crazy, you wouldn't be the first," Rodriguez grinned. Later that evening, after the celebration had wound down, Vroon found himself in the medical bay, reviewing footage from the battle. He watched again as Kowalski cauterized his own wound, as Jenkins pulled shrapnel from his shoulder, as the injured humans pushed through pain to complete their mission. "Computer, begin new research file," he dictated. New project title, Human Resilience Factors, a medical study of pain tolerance and combat effectiveness. Lixel entered the medical bay, carrying a case of supplies. "I've requisitioned additional field medical kits with human-specific components," she announced, "including, against my better judgment, cauterizing tools." Vroon's color shifted to surprised pink. "You're endorsing their barbaric field techniques?" "I'm adapting," Lixel replied pragmatically. "If we can't stop them from treating themselves, we might as well ensure they have proper tools." "Next thing you know, we'll be teaching cauterization techniques at the academy," Vroon muttered. Actually, Lixel hesitated. Commander Drelk has suggested we develop a cross-species field medicine course. Apparently, Alliance Command was impressed by the humans' ability to keep fighting despite injuries. Vroon stared at her in disbelief. Then gradually his color shifted to resigned acceptance. "The universe has gone mad." "No," Lixel corrected, her antennae twitching with what might have been amusement. "We've just encountered humans. I suspect it's not the last time they'll force us to reconsider our medical protocols." In his personal log that night, Chief Medical Officer Vroon made a final entry. "Humans remain the most contradictory species in the Alliance, simultaneously the most fragile and the most determined." Their approach to injury defies medical logic, yet achieves remarkable results. Perhaps there is something to be said for their peculiar philosophy of walking it off. Though I will never personally endorse self-cauterization, I must acknowledge that sometimes primitive methods yield effective outcomes. May the 7 moons of Zalthor give me patience, for I suspect my time with the humans has only just begun.